The spaceship floated in deep space, cold and broken. No stars nearby, no planet in sight, only darkness all around. Inside the ship, Captain Ray sat on the floor, breathing slowly. The oxygen light was red again. It had been red for hours. The air was thin, the heat was dropping, and the food packs were nearly finished. The engine room was dead, the navigation system was offline, and the repair bots were all broken. Ray had been alone on the ship for 5 days. He had tried everything he could, but nothing worked. He was not a hero, not a soldier, not a genius, just a cargo pilot, delivering fuel cells from Mars to the Titan station. Then the meteor storm came. It hit the ship hard, faster than the warning alarm, and now Ray was stuck here, in the middle of nowhere, waiting to die. But the strangest thing wasn't the silence. It was the sound he had started hearing inside the ship's walls. It started on the 3rd night. A soft tapping, like someone walking. Ray thought it was just metal cooling down or maybe pressure changing inside the pipes. But then, the sound came again, louder this time, and slower. Tap, tap, tap. He pressed his ear to the wall. There was something. Behind it, it moved, it breathed, and it walked. Ray had not slept in 2 days. He kept watching the hallway, holding a flashlight and a wrench. He was tired, hungry, and scared. Then, on the 5th night, something happened that he could never explain. The hallway lights flickered again. Ray walked toward the end of the corridor, where the metal wall always looked a little strange. It was smooth, too smooth, no bolts, no seams, just plain silver. But tonight, it was different. It looked soft, almost like liquid. Then, right in front of his eyes, the wall moved. It didn't break, it didn't open like a door. It melted, quietly, like water sliding down glass. And from that wall, something stepped out. She was tall, very tall, almost 10 feet. Her skin looked metallic, smooth and silver blue. Lines of soft blue light ran across her arms, neck, and face. Her eyes glowed like twin stars. She had no armor, no weapons, no tools, and yet she looked powerful. Ray fell back, too shocked to speak. The tall alien girl looked at him, just for a second, then turned toward the broken control panel beside the wall. She raised her hand and touched the wires. The panel lit up, green and bright. The oxygen warning turned off. Air began flowing again. Ray stared at her in disbelief. She didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't even look confused. She just started working. Like she had done this before, many times. Her fingers moved fast, opening panels, fixing wires, changing circuits. The broken lights on the ceiling came back to life. The engines gave a small hum, like they were waking up. Ray slowly stood up. Watching her every move, he didn't feel fear now. He felt something else: confusion, wonder, and a deep chill in his bones. "Who are you?" he whispered. She didn't answer, but somehow Ray felt she understood the question, and maybe she would answer. When the time was right, hours passed. She never stopped. She didn't eat, didn't rest, didn't speak. Just worked, fixing everything, one system at a time. Like she knew the ship better than Ray ever did. Ray found himself following her, watching her like a child watching magic. He didn't know where she came from. Was she inside the wall all along? Was she sent by someone? Or was she part of the ship itself? He checked the ship's old logs and found something strange. One file, almost 100 years old, mentioned a project called Unit E7. No details, just one line: emergency. Entity, when all systems fail. Ray looked at the girl, now repairing the ship's fusion core. Could she be that entity? The more she fixed, the more the ship changed. The walls looked newer, the lights brighter, the air fresher. It was like the ship was coming back to life, like it had been asleep, and now she was waking it up. Ray didn't know what to think. Was she a savior, a ghost, a machine? All he knew was this: she came from the wall. She was 10 feet tall, and she was fixing everything. But why? Captain Ray woke up to the sound of music. But his ship didn't have music, not anymore. All audio systems were dead since day 2. He sat up quickly, heart pounding. The soft melody floated in the air, like wind blowing across glass, gentle, cold, and not human. He followed the sound barefoot, holding his breath. The alien girl was standing in the center of the engine room, her back to him, arms raised. Thin wires from the walls had connected to her fingers and arms. They glowed softly, pulsing with the rhythm of the sound. Ray didn't dare speak. She looked like a living antenna or a machine trying to remember a dream. The melody faded and the wires slowly pulled back. Disappearing into the walls, she turned and looked at Ray. Still silent, still calm. Then, without a word, she pointed to the wall panel. It opened on its own, revealing tools Ray had never seen before. He stepped closer, nervous. She picked up a small glowing rod and handed it to him. No words, no instructions, just a gentle look like she knew he'd figure it out. He took the rod and looked at it. It started projecting a hologram in the air, a map of the ship, red zones blinking where systems were still broken. Ray looked at her, eyes wide. "You're showing me how to fix it?" She didn't answer, but nodded slightly, a nod so human, so normal, it made Ray feel strange. He had so many questions. Who was she? Was she alive? A machine? Both? Why didn't she speak? But the biggest question of all, how did she understand him without saying a word? Over the next few hours, they worked together, like a team that had trained for years. She would fix the power nodes, while Ray connected cooling systems. She would light up parts of the ship's blueprint, and he would follow her lead. Sometimes she would pause, touch a wall, and just stand there. The ship would react, walls shifting, doors unlocking, systems resetting. She wasn't just fixing the ship, she was awakening it. Ray began to feel like a visitor on his own ship. Everything was becoming faster, smoother, cleaner. And the alien girl never needed a break, never got tired. She moved like time didn't matter to her. Once, Ray made a mistake, connected a cable wrong. A spark shot out, and he fell back, yelling in pain. She was beside him in seconds. She touched the burn on his hand and her fingers glowed. The pain faded. The skin healed right in front of his eyes. Ray stared at her, shocked and speechless. She looked at him and tilted her head just slightly, like asking, "Better now?" He nodded slowly. "Thanks," he whispered. She blinked once and returned to her task. No words, just perfect silence and calm. That night, Ray sat in the cockpit alone. She was somewhere else in the ship, working. He opened the old logs again. Digging through hidden files, he found another note, this time a full paragraph. "If Unit E7 activates, do not fear it. It cannot speak, but it understands. It is programmed to protect, to repair, and to obey human emotion. It is not artificial. It is alive." Ray stared at the screen, the words shaking his mind. She was not a robot, not just a machine. She was something more, something created to survive, to protect ships like his. But why was she hidden in the wall? Why did no one ever tell captains about her? Was she part of some ancient tech, lost and forgotten? Was she sleeping inside the ship all this time, waiting for someone to truly need her? Ray thought back to the way she looked at him, not cold like a machine, not warm like a human, but aware, deeply aware. She knew what he needed, even before he said it. She saw his fear, his pain, his confusion. And instead of talking, she acted. She made the ship better, made him better. Ray leaned back in the seat and whispered, "I don't know who you are, but I think I trust you." In the hallway behind him, unseen, the tall alien girl paused, and for the first time, a small, quiet light blinked at the corner of her eye, almost like a tear. It began with a door that wasn't there yesterday. Ray walked past the engine room and stopped. His steps froze, his breath caught. There was a door where only a wall used to be, not scratched metal or rusted panels, no. This door looked new. Smooth as glass, glowing faint blue lines, like it had grown overnight. He didn't open it right away. He just stood there, staring. The ship had never had a room in that spot, not on any blueprint. He checked twice, even 3 times, but the map still showed an empty wall. Yet the door was real, and it wasn't the only thing. Later that day, the hallway lights began to follow Ray, not in a mechanical way, but like they were watching him. Lights would brighten when he moved, dim when he stopped. It felt like walking inside a creature, a silent one, but very much alive. The alien girl didn't seem surprised. She walked through the changes like she expected them. Sometimes she would pause and press her hand to a wall. The wall would shimmer and then reshape itself slightly. Ray didn't know what she was doing, but whatever it was no longer just repair. It was transformation. The ship's design started shifting. Wires grew like vines, smooth and glowing, crawling up the walls. Surfaces changed color, metal turning soft silver. Some parts becoming almost organic. The cockpit slowly changed too. Buttons faded into the dashboard. Screens became floating holograms. Everything became faster, cleaner, quieter. Ray tried asking her what was happening. "What are you doing to my ship?" She didn't answer, of course, but she looked at him, her eyes blinking slow. Then she pointed to a piece of old hull and watched it dissolve. In its place, a fresh panel grew alive. Breathing softly, Ray stepped back, unsure if he felt amazed or terrified. This wasn't just fixing anymore. This was evolution. The ship was becoming something new. Something it had never been before, he wondered. Was this what she was meant to do? Not just survive, not just repair, but grow the ship into something better, smarter, stronger, maybe even living. That night, Ray finally opened the new door. Inside was a small room, perfectly round. Walls glowing faint blue, no chairs, no screens. Just a strange pedestal in the center with a floating orb above it. He reached out, touched the orb. It showed him images, not memories, but designs, future versions of the ship, curved, winged, powerful, like a warship built by alien minds, or maybe a seed, growing into something never meant for humans alone. Ray pulled his hand away, shaking. What was happening to his ship? Was he still the captain? Or just a passenger now? Later, he found the alien girl in the engine room again. She was sitting now, her eyes closed, connected to the ship through dozens of silver threads growing from her back. The ship pulsed with energy, like a giant heart beating slow and steady. She wasn't just repairing anymore. She was becoming part of the ship. He wanted to stop it, wanted to scream, "Wait, I didn't agree to this." But deep down, he knew he would have been dead without her. The ship would have been scrap, floating in dark space. She saved it, and now she was claiming it. Suddenly, the ship's alert system came back online. A red light blinked in the corner of the cockpit. For the first time in days, the radar picked up a signal. It wasn't friendly, unknown vessel approaching, fast, silent, no response to hails. Ray's hands trembled as he read the data. The ship was not only changing, it was preparing for something he couldn't yet understand. He ran back to the alien girl. She was already standing. She looked at the screen, saw the signal, and nodded slowly. Then she raised her hand, and the ship responded. Panels shifted, shields activated, and an actual weapon rose from the hull. Ray had never seen it before. It hadn't existed before. He realized something terrifying and wonderful at once. She wasn't just fixing the ship. She was turning it into a living defense system, one that could fight, escape, or destroy based on her silent command. And still, she hadn't spoken a single word. Ray stared at her, his voice low. "You knew this was coming." She turned her glowing eyes to him, and for the first time she reached out, not to fix, not to build, but just to touch his shoulder. Gently, he didn't pull away, because in that single silent touch he felt the truth. The ship was no longer his, but maybe. Together, they were part of something much bigger, something that had just begun. Asterisk, the stars were blinking out. Ray stood at the window, staring into the black, one by one. The stars around the ship were vanishing, like someone was erasing them from the sky, but it wasn't magic. It was a ship so massive, so dark it blocked starlight itself. It moved like a shadow with engines, and it was coming straight for them. The radar didn't beep, it screamed. Ray jumped into the cockpit, systems blinking in red. The screen flashed. Unknown object detected, no ID match. But it wasn't unknown to him, not anymore. He had seen it, in the images from the alien orb in the hidden room. This ship, the Shadow Ship, was one of the reasons she was here. One of the reasons she was buried inside the wall, waiting. The alien girl walked in, calm as ever, her silver blue skin glowing slightly more than before. Her steps were slow, but full of purpose. She looked at the incoming signal, then turned her glowing eyes to Ray. He didn't ask this time, he knew. "This is the enemy," he whispered. She nodded once. The radar showed one ship, but the scan pulsed again. 3. More ships behind it, hidden in the dark, silent, no messages, no warnings. Predators didn't knock before attacking. Ray checked weapons. The new systems she had built were there. Powerful cannons, smart targeting, reinforced shields, weapons his cargo ship had never had before, weapons meant for war. She walked to the main panel and pressed her palm to it. The ship's floor vibrated. The walls shifted again. It felt like the ship was growing claws, getting ready to fight like it had teeth. Ray couldn't breathe for a moment. He was about to enter a battle, and his co-pilot was a 10-foot alien engineer who still hadn't said a word. He sat down in the pilot seat. Everything was connected now, his seat, the controls, the view, all reacting to his thoughts, his movements. It was no longer just a machine. It was her. She had merged with the ship completely. The enemy ship fired first. A red beam sliced through the dark. The shields held, but barely. The ship shook, metal groaning, warning lights blinking. Before Ray could react, the ship responded on its own. Turrets unfolded like wings from the hull, glowing with blue light. They fired fast and silent. The enemy beams stopped. The shadow ship moved back, surprised, maybe even scared. Ray looked at her. She was standing still, eyes closed, hands glowing, connected, controlling everything from inside. And then, something new appeared on the screen. A message, not from the enemy, but from the ship itself. E7 unit fully integrated. Host. Captain recognized. Protection mode, engaged. Ray stared at the words. She had accepted him. He wasn't just a passenger anymore. He was the captain with her, a team. But then the screen glitched. Another message appeared. This time in red. Enemy signal recognized. They know E7 is active. Ray's hands shook. This wasn't random. They were hunting her, not him. She was the target, and he was in the middle of it. He looked at her again. She's why they're here, he whispered to himself. She opened her eyes, slowly, and for the first time she stepped toward him. She reached out her hand and touched the control panel. A hologram appeared, showing her memory. Images flashed. Ships like hers. Thousands of years ago. Pilots with glowing eyes. A war between ancient machines and living shadows. A betrayal. A shutdown. A long sleep inside ship walls, until she was needed again. Ray watched the memory and felt cold. She wasn't just tech. She was a survivor of a war that most species had forgotten. And now, the enemy had come back to finish what they started. He clenched his fists. He wasn't going to let that happen. Not again. He turned to her. "Let's fight," he said, his voice firm. She didn't speak, but she stepped beside him and placed her hand on his shoulder. The ship pulsed with light. The stars came back into view. The shadow ships were still there. But this time, the hunter was ready, and this time, she wasn't alone. The enemy spoke first, but not with words. A voice entered Ray's mind cold, metallic and wrong. It didn't come through the ship's speakers. It came through him. "You woke her up," the voice said. "You broke the silence." Ray fell to his knees, gripping his head. The pain was like a drill behind his eyes. Memories that weren't his flashed inside his mind. Burning stars, broken ships, dying planets, all caused by them. He looked up at the screen. The enemy vessel had changed. It opened like a flower made of bone and steel. Inside, something glowed red and angry. A living core, a brain, maybe, or something worse. The alien girl stepped in front of Ray. She raised both her hands, and the pain vanished. Her eyes glowed. Brighter than ever. But this time, they didn't look calm. They looked ready. Ray stood beside her, shaking. "What was that?" he asked. She looked at him for a long second, then pointed to the screen. A new signal appeared, ancient, encrypted. But hers, the enemy, wasn't just here to destroy the ship. They were here to destroy her. The connection between them had started. Long ago, they were opposites. She was creation, healing, balance. They were decay, corruption, hunger. Long ago, their kind tried to kill hers, and failed now. They had returned to finish the job. The enemy vessel fired again. But this time, the ship didn't shake. The alien girl extended her hand in the shields. Bent like water catching light, the beam hit and scattered. No damage, no fear. Then she walked to the center of the cockpit and did something Ray had never seen. She pulled something from her own chest. A small glowing cube, humming with power. She placed it into the ship's core panel. The moment it touched the system, the entire ship changed. The walls shifted, the windows widened, the engines lit with pale blue fire. A deep sound filled the air, like the breath of a giant waking up. The ship was alive now, truly alive. Ray sat in the pilot's seat. The controls folded into his hands, fitting like gloves. No switches, no levers, just thought, feeling, and trust. He looked at her. She nodded once. He knew what to do. They turned to face the enemy. 3 ships now, fully opened, releasing drones, black, spinning, sharp as needles. The girl raised her hands again, this time. The ship responded like a mirror. Wings unfolded from the sides. Turrets rotated on silent motors. The ship didn't just defend, it moved. Ray thought left. The ship moved left. He thought target. The weapons locked on. He thought now, and the ship fired. Blue energy beams shot out, clean and fast. 2 enemy drones exploded in an instant, but the third split in half and kept coming. Ray twisted the ship through the debris. His body should have felt pressure, force, pain, but the ship protected him like it wrapped around his mind, shielding his nerves. The girl stood beside him, one hand on the core panel. Every time he lost focus, she guided it back. They weren't flying the ship anymore. They were inside it, together. One of the enemy ships moved in close, too close. It launched a spike, huge, sharp, glowing with red light. It didn't aim at the ship, it aimed at her. She stepped forward, raised both hands. The spike stopped mid-air, floating like time had paused. Then she crushed it, silently. Ray watched in awe. She wasn't just an engineer anymore. She was a weapon, a guardian, a survivor of a war that no one remembered but her. Then came the voice again, this time weaker, angrier. "You protect what should have died. You resist extinction." Ray stood and walked beside her. He looked at the enemy ship on the screen and said, "She's not dying, not today." With a final command from both of them, the ship surged forward, faster than light, faster than thought, straight into the enemy core. Everything turned white, then blue, then quiet. Only silence remained. Then the stars returned. The enemy ships were gone. And the ship slowed down, breathing again, alive. Ray sat down, heart pounding. She turned to him, her face softer now. Not smiling, but something close. A moment of peace after the storm. He leaned back and whispered, "That was first contact. Didn't go how I expected." She said nothing. But for the first time, she sat beside him, like a friend, like a partner, and maybe like someone who had finally found her captain. Asterisk, she dreamed in colors Ray had never seen before. He didn't know she could sleep. Not really. She had always stood still, silent, moving only to repair or protect. But now she was lying down in the center of the ship's new core room. Her eyes closed, the lights on her skin dimmed, sleeping, or something like it. And she was dreaming. The ship showed Ray flashes of it, soft images floating through the air like smoke. They weren't from his mind, they were hers. He stepped closer, careful not to wake her. The images grew clearer. Planets burned, stars cracked, and machines, giant ones. Like cities walked across empty landscapes, Ray saw thousands of beings like her. All glowing, all tall, all silent, all dying. Dream pulsed again, showing him, a young man, a pilot, not Ray, but someone like him. Standing beside her in a battle, he shouted her name. Era 7. It echoed through the dream like thunder. Ray whispered the name. Era 7. The alien girl's eyes flickered open. She didn't look surprised. She just sat up slowly, looked at him, and nodded. That's you, Ray said quietly. You're not just a unit. You had a name. The ship reacted to her awakening. Walls shifted, lights changed to a warmer tone, as if recognizing her memory had brought something back. Not just data purpose. She stood, walked to the wall, and placed her palm on it. A hidden panel opened. Inside was something ancient. A core made of crystal, cracked and old. She handed it to Ray, gently. The moment he touched it, his mind lit up again. This time, it wasn't a dream. It was a memory transfer, direct and painful. He saw her creators, tall beings with golden skin and calm voices. They built her to heal ships, not destroy. But when the war came, they changed her. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. Ray saw the enemy again. Not ships, not life, but a virus. A living swarm that infected machines, minds, even stars. They didn't build, they fed on energy, memory, time itself. The creators made Era 7 to survive that, to outlast the virus, to rebuild when the stars fell. Ray fell to his knees, overwhelmed. He felt her pain, the loneliness of centuries asleep inside ship walls, waking only when someone needed her, and forgetting who she was every time, until now. She walked over and helped him stand. No words, just a quiet strength. The ship had shared her history with him, because now they were linked, truly connected. Ray looked around. The ship felt heavier now, not in weight, but in memory, like it carried the burden of her past too. He looked at her and said, "They left you behind." She nodded slowly. "And you waited." Another nod. "For me?" This time, she didn't answer, but she touched her hand to his chest, right over his heart, and a small light passed between them. A spark of trust, a fragment of command. She had chosen him, not just as captain, but as witness. Suddenly, the ship's radar came alive again. New signals, 5 of them. But they weren't enemies. They were old ships, drifting, dark, forgotten. Ray looked at the screen, then at her. "Are they like you?" She turned and stared at the drifting ships. Her eyes flickered once, twice, and then she stepped back into the core room, placed both hands on the panel. The ship reached out, sending a signal made of old code and memory pulses, and one by one, the other ships answered. Lights flickered in the darkness. Engines hummed, systems rebooted. Ray stared in disbelief. She was waking them up, the others, the forgotten protectors, the last of her kind. She turned to Ray, her eyes glowing. No fear, just a quiet message. They were not alone anymore. The war wasn't over, but neither was hope. The stars didn't rise, they followed her. Ray stood on the ship's bridge, watching in silent awe. Around them, the 5 ancient ships floated like sleeping titans, now awake, now shining, and every one of them had heard her. Era 7, the last engineer of a forgotten war, the one who remembered. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. These ships, massive, glowing, half alive, moved with her rhythm, like planets pulled by gravity, like soldiers obeying a silent commander. Ray watched her step into the heart of the ship again, but this time something was different. She wasn't just entering the core, she was becoming it. Silver threads extended from her back, arms, and legs. The lights on the walls pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Her skin glowed gold for the first time, not blue, like she was unlocking her final form. Not just the ship's memory, but her own. Ray took a step forward. "Era, what are you doing?" She turned slightly, her face calm but focused. Then she looked at the control panel. A new message appeared on it. Unit Era 7. Primary integration in progress. Final upgrade requires pilot sync. Ray's pulse quickened. You need me? She reached out her hand. This time, he didn't hesitate. The moment he touched her palm, the ship breathed. Every wall, every wire, every system came alive at once. Energy flooded through the ship like blood. Ray felt it in his bones and his mind, not flying the ship, but becoming the ship. He saw through the walls. He felt the engines burn. He could feel the other ships too distant, powerful, ready. The enemy had not given up. More signals appeared, dozens then hundreds, a dark cloud approaching fast, an army from the black edge of the galaxy, drawn by her awakening. Ray looked at her. No, not her. Them. They were one now: ship, pilot, engineer, memory, bound by war, pain, and choice. The first enemy wave arrived, silent but deadly. Small, sharp, fast-moving machines like insects. But this time, the ship didn't just defend. It adapted. Ray thought of a weapon. The hull formed it. He thought of a shield. The energy bent into place. The enemy swarmed. The old ships joined formation, each one powered by their own silent guardians like Era. Together, they moved like a school of whales in the sea of stars. Ray saw the pattern. They weren't just fighting, they were cleansing, reclaiming lost ground, burning away the virus that had spread for centuries. More came, too many. The ship's systems overloaded. Ray gritted his teeth, blood trickling from his nose. Too much power, too much memory. Era turned to him. He felt her message, not in words, but emotion. You're not built to carry this weight. Let me. He shook his head. No, he whispered. We finish this together then. The moment came. The enemy flagship appeared, huge, old, covered in scars. The last source of the swarm, the command mind. Ray focused everything on it. Era placed both hands on the panel. Her glow went from gold to white, and suddenly silence. The ship entered a state beyond space. Everything froze. Ray floated through memory, past battles, past lives, eras. Creation, her fall, her waiting. He reached out, touched her core, a crystal heart still beating after 1,000 years. And he gave it everything: his will, his fire, his choice. The ship reappeared in real space, and it exploded with light. A pulse of raw truth, not destruction cure. The swarm disintegrated. The flagship cracked and collapsed into silence. And for the first time in ages, there was peace. Ray fell back, gasping. Systems dimmed. The ship slowed, and Era collapsed into his arms. Her body cold, quiet, but not gone. She had given everything, but she was still. There, he carried her to the core room, laid her gently where she first awoke. Rest, he whispered. I'll keep flying. The other ships floated nearby, watching, waiting, protecting. The galaxy had changed, and Era 7's war was finally over. Ray stood at the window, stars rising again, a pilot, a witness, and a friend. And somewhere deep inside the ship, a light blinked, waiting for the next time she would be needed.